Standing outside St. Mary's Cathedral in my ill-fitting suit, I watched my father adjust my golden sister Amanda's veil for the 100th time while completely ignoring me. "You better not embarrass this family today, Corey," he hissed when he finally noticed me. "One wrong move, and your tuition money disappears forever." He had no clue I'd been lying to him for 8 months. The envelope in my jacket pocket felt heavier than a brick. In 10 minutes, I would destroy his entire world. I had arrived 3 hours before the ceremony started, just as my father Robert commanded. The morning sun cast long shadows across the church parking lot as I watched him orchestrate every detail of Amanda's perfect day like a military general preparing for battle. His salt and pepper hair was slicked back with enough gel to survive a hurricane, and his navy suit had been pressed so many times the creases could cut glass. The phone call from 2 weeks ago still echoed in my mind. Robert's voice had carried that familiar tone of disappointment mixed with authority when he said, "Corey, I don't care what plans you think you have. You will attend your sister's wedding, you will smile, and you will act grateful for this family. One wrong move, one moment where you make this about yourself instead of Amanda, and I'm done paying for your college. Do you understand me?" I had understood perfectly. What he didn't understand was how little his threat actually meant to me anymore. Amanda emerged from the bridal preparation room like a queen holding court, her ivory silk dress flowing behind her in dramatic waves. At 26, she had mastered the art of making every room revolve around her presence. Her auburn hair was arranged in an elaborate updo that probably cost more than most people's monthly rent, and her makeup was applied with the precision of a Renaissance painting. "Sarah, the flowers need to be repositioned." Amanda directed her maid of honor with the authority of a CEO addressing her board. "Jessica, my train isn't lying correctly. Fix it." Sarah, a petite blonde who worked as Amanda's former colleague, immediately jumped to adjust the white rose bouquet. Jessica, a tall brunette who had been Amanda's sorority sister, knelt to straighten the fabric with the reverence of someone handling a religious artifact. "This day has to be absolutely flawless," Amanda continued, checking her reflection in a handheld mirror for the 15th time in 5 minutes. "I've been planning every detail for 2 years. Nothing can go wrong." I approached the bridal suite entrance, carrying Amanda's forgotten lipstick that Robert had asked me to deliver. Through the partially open door, I heard Jessica laugh and say, "At least you don't have to worry about your brother ruining the photos. I still can't believe your dad actually convinced him to come." "Trust me, I tried everything to keep Corey away," Amanda replied, her voice carrying that familiar edge of annoyance she reserved for discussing me. "I told Daddy that having him here would just create awkward questions from David's family. I mean, what am I supposed to say when people ask what my brother does?" "That he's still playing video games in college at 24, Sarah gasped dramatically. "He's still in school? I thought he was older than you." "He is older, but he's been struggling through his computer science major for years," Amanda explained with exaggerated patience. "Daddy keeps throwing money at his education, hoping something will stick. Honestly, I think Corey just likes the student lifestyle because it means he doesn't have to face real responsibility." The lipstick tube felt like it weighed 50 pounds in my hand as I stood frozen outside the door. "Well, at least your dad seated him at the children's table," Jessica added with a giggle. "That's actually brilliant. He'll fit right in with the 8-year-olds. Amanda's laughter was sharp and bright. "That was my idea, actually. I told Daddy that Corey would be more comfortable with kids since he acts like one anyway. Plus, David's parents specifically asked that we minimize any potential embarrassment from my side of the family." "Your parents must be so proud of you, though," Sarah said warmly. "I mean, look at everything you've accomplished. Marketing coordinator at 26, planning this incredible wedding, marrying into such a successful family. You're like the daughter every parent dreams of having. It does feel good to be the one who actually made something of herself." Amanda agreed. "Daddy always says I'm his pride and joy. Sometimes I wonder what would have happened if Corey had just been born with half my drive and ambition." My stomach twisted into knots as I heard Robert's voice approaching from behind me. "Corey, what are you doing lurking around here?" he demanded, his tone immediately suspicious. I told you to stay out of the way until the ceremony starts. I turned around, forcing my expression to remain neutral. You asked me to bring Amanda her lipstick. She left it in the car. Robert snatched the tube from my hand without a word of thanks. Amanda, sweetheart, I have your lipstick, he called through the door, in a voice completely different from the one he used with me. Warm, loving, patient. Thanks, Daddy, Amanda replied sweetly. Is everything ready? Are all the guests seated? Almost, Princess. David's family looks absolutely distinguished. His father, Harold, was just telling me about their real estate portfolio. The Wellingtons really know how to build wealth across generations. I listened to this exchange, remembering all the times Robert had spoken about my achievements, or rather, all the times he hadn't. When I made the dean's list every semester, Head barely acknowledged it. When I won the programming competition junior year, Head changed the subject to Amanda's promotion at work. When I earned my internship at the tech startup, Head questioned whether it was even a real job. You know, Daddy. Amanda's voice carried through the door. I was thinking about the photographer situation. Maybe it would be better if Corey wasn't in the family portraits. David's family takes these things very seriously, and we want the photos to represent our best selves. That's very mature thinking, sweetheart. Robert agreed immediately. He'll let the photographer know to focus on the core family members. The core family members. Apparently, that didn't include me. Robert turned back to me with that familiar look of barely contained frustration. Go find your seat and stay there. The ceremony starts in 30 minutes, and I don't want to have to worry about what you're doing. As I walked away from the bridal suite, I could hear Amanda's voice one more time. Honestly, the wedding photos will be so much more elegant without having to work around Corey's awkwardness. This day is about celebrating success and happiness, not about making everyone feel included just for the sake of it. I reached into my jacket pocket and felt the envelope again. In less than an hour, Amanda would learn exactly what success actually looked like. The walk to my assigned seat gave me time to reflect on the elaborate deception I'd been maintaining for the past 8 months. While my family believed I was barely scraping by in my final year of college, the truth was far more complicated and infinitely more satisfying. Last December, Northwestern University's Technological Institute had been buzzing with anticipation for graduation day. The campus was covered in a pristine layer of snow that made the Gothic Revival buildings look like something from a fairy tale. Students and families filled every available space, their excitement creating a warm energy that cut through the bitter Chicago wind. I had walked across that stage as valedictorian of the computer science program, my 4.0 grade point average representing 4 years of relentless dedication to my studies. The dean had announced my name with particular enthusiasm, noting my thesis on machine learning algorithms that had already attracted attention from several major tech companies. But I walked alone. While other graduates were surrounded by proud families, taking pictures and celebrating achievements, I sat in the audience during the ceremony knowing that my parents were 90 miles away attending Amanda's company holiday party. She had specifically requested their presence because she was receiving a recognition award for meeting her basic job requirements. I had made the decision not to tell them about my graduation deliberately. Years of watching my genuine accomplishments get overshadowed by Amanda's mediocre achievements had taught me that including my family in my success would somehow make it less mine and more theirs to claim credit for. The day after graduation, I had received a call that would change everything. Marcus Thompson, the senior developer at TechFlow Solutions, had reviewed my thesis and wanted to schedule an interview immediately. TechFlow was a rapidly growing startup specializing in cybersecurity software for financial institutions, exactly the kind of cutting-edge work I had dreamed of doing. The interview process had been the most challenging and rewarding experience of my academic life. Linda Rodriguez, the CEO, had presented me with a series of coding problems that pushed my abilities to their limits. When I solved a system vulnerability issue that their team had been working on for months, I knew I had found my place in the professional world. Corey, Linda had said during our final meeting, your approach to problem solving is exactly what we need here. You don't just write code. You think in systems and solutions. We'd like to offer you a position as a junior software engineer. starting at $120,000 annually, plus stock options that could be worth significantly more as we grow. I had accepted immediately, knowing that this salary was more than double what Amanda made in her marketing job, and triple what my father earned as a high school principal. My first day at TechFlow had been a revelation. The office occupied 3 floors of a gleaming building in downtown Chicago, with floor-to-ceiling windows that offered stunning views of Lake Michigan. My workstation was equipped with the latest technology, and I was immediately assigned to a team working on software that would protect millions of dollars in financial transactions. Within the first month, I had identified and resolved 3 critical security vulnerabilities that could have exposed client data. My supervisor, Rachel Kim, had been so impressed that she recommended me for accelerated advancement. By my 4th month, I had been promoted to senior developer with a salary increase to $140,000 annually. The irony was almost painful. While my parents worried about my ability to make something of myself, I was earning more money than both of them combined and working on technology that would be implemented by major banks across the country. But I had chosen to maintain the illusion of struggling student life. I kept my modest apartment near campus and drove the same reliable Honda Civic I'd had since sophomore year. When Robert called to lecture me about applying myself and taking life seriously, I would sit in my office overlooking the Chicago River, reviewing code that was worth millions of dollars. The monthly phone conversations had become increasingly difficult to endure. Robert would spend 15 minutes describing Amanda's latest workplace achievements, organizing a successful client meeting, coordinating a marketing campaign, receiving positive feedback from her supervisor, while dismissing my academic accomplishments as just school stuff. "The real world is different, Corey," he would say with that patronizing tone that made my jaw clench. "When you finally graduate and try to find a job, you'll understand what actual pressure feels like. Amanda deals with real responsibility every day. She manages budgets, works with clients, represents our family name in professional settings. That's the kind of success that matters." If only he knew that my school stuff involved designing security protocols that protected more money in a single day than Amanda's entire annual budget. The plan to reveal everything at Amanda's wedding had formed gradually over months of enduring these conversations. I wanted to choose the perfect moment, when the contrast between perception and reality would have the maximum impact. Amanda's wedding, with its emphasis on family success and achievement, seemed like the ideal opportunity. I had spent weeks preparing the contents of the envelope, making copies of my diploma, organizing my pay stubs, and calculating exactly how much money Robert had spent on my education over 4 years. The cashier's check for $67,500 represented every penny of tuition, fees, and expenses he had covered, plus interest. Looking around the church now, watching Robert beam with pride as guests complimented him on Amanda's accomplishments, I felt a mixture of anticipation and sadness. In a few hours, he would learn that his biggest disappointment was actually his greatest success, and his golden child was not quite as golden as she appeared. The envelope in my pocket contained more than just documents. It contained 4 years of overlooked achievements, 8 months of secret success, and the power to reshape our family dynamics forever. The ceremony began with all the pomp and circumstance that Amanda had meticulously orchestrated. I found my assigned seat exactly where she had planned, wedged between my 7-year-old cousin Emma and 9-year-old Tyler at what was unmistakably the children's table. The contrast was jarring and deliberate. Around us, Emma colored in her activity book while Tyler built a small tower from sugar packets, while just 20 feet away, adults in elegant attire engaged in sophisticated conversations about business ventures and investment strategies. The whispers started almost immediately. I could hear guests murmuring to each other as they noticed the unusual seating arrangement. An older woman in a lavender dress leaned toward her companion and said just loud enough for me to hear, "Isn't that the bride's brother? Why is he sitting with the children?" Her friend, adorned in pearls and a knowing expression, responded with practiced discretion. "From what I understand, he's had some difficulties launching his career. The family is being very patient with his situation." Robert had positioned himself near the front of the church, proudly greeting guests and accepting congratulations on Amanda's behalf. I watched him shake hands with distinguished-looking couples, his chest puffed out with the kind of pride that comes from knowing your child is the center of positive attention. "Robert, you must be so thrilled," said a tall man in an expensive charcoal suit. "Amanda looks absolutely radiant. David's family speaks so highly of her professional accomplishments." "She's always been our shining star," Robert replied, his voice carrying across several rows of pews. "Amanda has this natural ability to excel at everything she touches. Leadership qualities, work ethic, social grace. She got all the best family traits." The implication was clear, and it hit me like a physical blow. If Amanda got all the best traits, what did that leave for me? During the cocktail hour that followed the ceremony, the social dynamics became even more pronounced. The reception was being held in the church's adjacent fellowship hall, which had been transformed into an elegant celebration space with white linens, crystal centerpieces, and soft lighting that made everything glow with warm sophistication. I was standing near the appetizer table, attempting to blend into the background, when Amanda's new in-laws approached me directly. Harold Wellington commanded attention simply by entering a room. His silver hair was perfectly styled. His navy suit clearly cost more than most people's monthly salary, and he carried himself with the confidence of someone accustomed to being the most important person in any gathering. His wife Patricia was equally formidable, a retired judge whose reputation for fairness was matched only by her intolerance for anything she perceived as weakness or dishonesty. Her steel-gray hair was pulled back in an elegant chignon, and her dark blue dress spoke of refined taste and substantial means. "You must be Amanda's brother," Harold said, extending his hand with the kind of firm handshake that doubled as a character assessment. "I'm Harold Wellington, and this is my wife, Patricia. We're David's parents." "Nice to meet you," I replied, accepting the handshake and noting the way his eyes immediately sized me up and found me wanting. Patricia's smile was polite but cold. "Amanda has told us so much about you, Corey. It's unfortunate that you've had such a challenging time finding your direction in life." The statement hung in the air like a dark cloud. I realized that Amanda had been feeding her future in-laws a very specific narrative about my circumstances. "She mentioned that you've had to repeat several college courses," Harold continued, his tone carrying the kind of gentle condescension that wealthy people use when discussing the less fortunate, "and that you've been unable to maintain steady employment. These things happen, of course. Not everyone is cut out for academic or professional success." Patricia nodded sympathetically. "We understand that Robert has been very patient, continuing to support your education despite the setbacks. It speaks well of his character as a father." "Amanda also told us about your job at the gaming store," Harold added. "Retail work can be perfectly respectable, though I imagine it doesn't provide much in the way of career advancement or financial stability." I stood there, absorbing this revelation that Amanda had constructed an entire fictional version of my life to share with her new family. According to her narrative, I was a college dropout, working part-time retail, while living off my father's charity. In fact, Patricia continued, glancing around to make sure we weren't being overheard, "we had initially suggested that perhaps it would be better if you didn't attend the wedding. Not out of any personal animosity, you understand, but rather to avoid any awkward questions from our extended family and business associates. The Wellington name carries considerable weight in our social and professional circles," Harold explained with the patience of someone accustomed to explaining complex concepts to simpler minds. "We've worked very hard to build a reputation for excellence and success. Association with, well, with individuals who haven't achieved similar standards can sometimes create unfortunate impressions." Patricia placed what she probably intended as a comforting hand on my arm. "We're not suggesting that your difficulties reflect poorly on Amanda, of course. Sometimes families simply produce children with very different capabilities. The important thing is that Amanda has clearly inherited the family's drive and ambition." As they walked away, presumably satisfied that they had handled an awkward social situation with appropriate grace, I felt the envelope in my pocket grow heavier. These people had made judgments about my worth based entirely on lies Amanda had told them, and they felt comfortable expressing their disdain for someone they believed was beneath their social status. The rest of the cocktail hour passed in a blur of similar interactions. Family friends approached me with expressions of pity, offering condescending encouragement about finding my path eventually and not giving up hope for the future. Uncle Frank, who owned a small chain of hardware stores, clapped me on the shoulder and said, "Don't worry, Corey. Not everyone can be as naturally gifted as Amanda. Some of us just have to work a little harder to find our place in the world." Aunt Linda, Frank's wife, nodded sympathetically. "The important thing is that you keep trying. Maybe someday you'll find something that clicks for you the way marketing clicked for Amanda." Even the photographer seemed to have received specific instructions about my role in the day's events. When family members gathered for group photos, he would politely but firmly guide me to the edges of shots, or suggest that perhaps I should step out entirely to make the composition more balanced. "Let's get a nice shot of the immediate family," he directed during one session, gesturing for Robert, Amanda, and David to move closer together while I remained several feet away. Perfect. This captures the real essence of the family unit. The most painful moment came when Amanda approached me directly, her wedding dress rustling as she moved with the confidence of someone who knew every eye in the room was drawn to her radiance. "Corey, I need to talk to you," she said, her voice carrying that familiar tone of barely controlled frustration. "Several guests have mentioned that you look uncomfortable or unhappy. You're making people wonder if something is wrong, and that's creating exactly the kind of negative attention I was trying to avoid." I looked at my sister, really looked at her, and saw someone who had become so accustomed to being the center of positive attention that any deviation from that script felt like a personal attack. "I need you to smile more convincingly," she continued, adjusting her tiara with the practiced motion of someone who had spent hours perfecting her appearance. "This is my wedding day, the most important day of my life, and I won't have it ruined by family drama or sulking." "I'm not sulking," I replied quietly. "Well, whatever you're doing, stop it," Amanda snapped. "Daddy has sacrificed so much to give you opportunities, and this is how you repay him? By bringing negative energy to my wedding? By making his friends and colleagues wonder what went wrong with his son?" She leaned closer, her voice dropping to a harsh whisper. "If you can't manage to look happy for your own sister's success, then maybe you should consider leaving early. I'm sure everyone would understand if you suddenly felt ill or had some other commitment to attend to." As Amanda glided away to accept congratulations from another group of guests, I realized that this moment was exactly what I had been waiting for. The cruelty, the dismissal, the complete lack of recognition for who I actually was. It had all built to this perfect crescendo. I reached into my pocket and felt the envelope one more time. In just a few minutes, during the traditional father-daughter dance, I would approach Robert with my revelation, and everything Amanda thought she knew about our family hierarchy would crumble around her like a house of cards in a hurricane. The reception had moved into full swing, with guests enjoying their dinner and anticipating the traditional dances that would mark the formal celebration portion of the evening. Robert stood near the head table, beaming with paternal pride as he watched Amanda and David share their first dance as husband and wife. The soft melody of "At Last" filled the fellowship hall, while dozens of guests watched the couple move gracefully across the polished wooden floor. I had been waiting for this exact moment, when Robert would be emotionally elevated by the success of Amanda's day, surrounded by witnesses, and completely unprepared for what I was about to reveal. The timing had to be perfect, and as the song reached its conclusion and guests began to applaud, I knew my opportunity had arrived. "Dad," I said, approaching Robert as the dance floor cleared and the band prepared for the father-daughter dance. "I have something for you." Robert barely glanced in my direction, his attention focused on adjusting his tie and preparing for his moment in the spotlight with Amanda. "Corey, whatever it is, it can wait. This is not the time for your personal issues. Actually, I think you should see this before you give your speech," I insisted, producing the manila envelope from my jacket pocket. The weight of it seemed to surprise Robert as I pressed it into his hands. "What is this?" he asked with obvious irritation, clearly annoyed at being distracted from Amanda's special moment. "Some kind of graduation card? I told you I don't have time for." "Just open it, Dad. Please." The firmness in my voice must have registered because Robert looked at me with sudden attention. Around us, several guests had begun to notice our interaction, including Harold Wellington, who was standing close enough to observe what was happening. Robert's fingers worked at the envelope's seal with growing curiosity. Corey, if this is some kind of joke or inappropriate timing for his words, died in his throat as he pulled out the first document. Northwestern University's official diploma, embossed with gold lettering and bearing the university's seal, proclaimed that Corey Michael Adams had been awarded a Bachelor of Science degree in Computer Science, magna cum laude, December graduation. Below the degree designation, in elegant script, was the word valedictorian. Robert's face drained of color as he read and reread the document, his hands beginning to tremble slightly. This can't be right. You're still in school. You have another semester to finish. Keep looking, I said quietly, watching as nearby guests began to take notice of Robert's increasingly shocked expression. The second document was a collection of pay stubs from TechFlow Solutions, spanning 8 months and showing my bi-weekly salary payments. Each stub clearly indicated my gross pay of $4,615 every 2 weeks, with year-to-date earnings approaching $120,000. Harold Wellington, unable to contain his curiosity, stepped closer and peered over Robert's shoulder. His expression shifted from casual interest to genuine surprise as he processed what he was seeing. $120,000 annually, Harold murmured, his voice carrying far enough for several other guests to hear. That's quite substantial for someone so young. Robert's hands were shaking visibly now as he examined the third document. Official stock option paperwork from TechFlow Solutions, showing my equity position in the company, currently valued at approximately $80,000, and growing with each quarterly evaluation. I don't understand, Robert whispered, looking up at me with an expression of complete bewilderment. How is this possible? You never said anything about graduating. You never mentioned a job. I've been paying your tuition bills, which brings us to the final item, I said, nodding toward the envelope. Robert reached inside and withdrew a cashier's check made out to Robert Michael Adams in the amount of $67,500. Attached to the check was a handwritten note on my professional letterhead. Dad, this represents full repayment for all college expenses you covered over 4 years, including interest calculated at 5% annually. Your investment in my education paid off better than either of us ever imagined. Thank you for believing in me enough to support my studies, even when you didn't see the results. Love, your son, Dr. Corey Adams, Senior Software Developer, TechFlow Solutions. The note clarified something else that had escaped Robert's attention. My promotion to Senior Developer 3 months earlier, along with the title that recognized my advanced degree and leadership responsibilities within the company. Harold Wellington was no longer pretending not to eavesdrop. $67,500. He said loud enough that Patricia and several other guests turned their attention to our group. Robert, did you know about this? Robert seemed incapable of speech. He looked from the documents to me and back to the documents, as if trying to solve a puzzle that defied logical explanation. Corey graduated 8 months ago as valedictorian, I explained to the growing group of interested observers. I've been working as a senior software developer at one of Chicago's fastest-growing tech companies ever since. I wanted to prove I could succeed independently before revealing the truth. Patricia Wellington appeared beside her husband, her judicial instincts immediately engaged. May I see those documents? She asked Robert, who handed them over in a daze. As Patricia examined my diploma and pay stubs with the thoroughness of someone accustomed to evaluating evidence, Harold continued his questions. But Amanda told us you had dropped out of college multiple times. She said you were working part-time retail and living off your father's financial support. The revelation hung in the air like a bomb waiting to explode. I could see Robert processing this information, realizing that while he had been worrying about my future and apologizing for my supposed failures, Amanda had been actively spreading lies about my circumstances to her new family. These documents appear to be completely authentic, Patricia announced with the authority of her legal background. The diploma is official Northwestern University printing, and these pay stubs show consistent employment with impressive compensation. Corey, what exactly does a senior software developer do? I designed cybersecurity systems for financial institutions, I explained, noting how the description seemed to further impress the Wellingtons. My team protects millions of dollars in daily transactions from cyber attacks and fraud. We work with major banks and investment firms to ensure their systems are secure. Harold's expression had shifted completely from condescending pity to genuine respect. That's remarkable work. Cybersecurity is one of the fastest-growing and most critical fields in technology today. Robert finally found his voice, though it came out as barely more than a whisper. Corey, why didn't you tell me? All those phone calls where I lectured you about applying yourself and taking responsibility. You were already doing all of this. I wanted to succeed on my own terms first, I replied. I needed to prove to myself that I could build a career without family expectations or pressure. And honestly, after years of watching my achievements get overlooked while Amanda's got celebrated, I wanted to wait until I could make an undeniable statement about my capabilities. The crowd around us had grown to include nearly half the wedding guests. Word was spreading quickly through the reception that something significant was happening, and people were abandoning their dinner tables to witness the unfolding revelation. $67,500, Robert repeated, staring at the cashier's check. You're paying me back for your entire college education, every penny, plus interest, I confirmed. You invested in my future when I needed it most, and I wanted you to know that investment paid off exactly as it should have. Patricia Wellington looked at me with newfound appreciation. Young man, this demonstrates remarkable character and financial responsibility. Very few people would choose to repay educational support that wasn't legally required. As the implications of my revelation began to sink in, I could see Robert's emotional state shifting from shock to something approaching pride mixed with confusion and regret. But our conversation was about to be interrupted by someone who would not be pleased with this sudden redirection of attention and admiration. Amanda had noticed the commotion and was making her way toward our group, her wedding dress flowing dramatically behind her as she approached with the determined stride of someone accustomed to being the focal point of any gathering. Amanda approached our group with the regal bearing of a bride who expected every moment of her wedding day to revolve around her happiness and success. The train of her dress swept elegantly behind her as she navigated between dinner tables, accepting congratulations and compliments from guests who stepped aside to let her pass. "What's going on over here?" she asked with a bright smile that didn't quite reach her eyes. "Daddy, people are starting to notice that you're not circulating. Is everything all right?" Robert looked at Amanda with an expression she had never seen before. Uncertainty, mixed with dawning realization that everything he thought he knew about his children might be fundamentally wrong. "Amanda, sweetheart, did you know that Corey graduated college 8 months ago?" Robert asked, his voice carrying a strange tone that made Amanda's smile falter slightly. "What are you talking about?" Amanda laughed, but there was tension creeping into her voice. "Corey's still finishing his degree. Has been struggling through the same program for years. Everyone knows that." Robert held up my diploma for Amanda to see. Valedictorian, Amanda. Corey graduated as valedictorian with a perfect grade point average. Amanda stared at the document as if it were written in a foreign language. "That's impossible. There must be some mistake." "Corey, what kind of game are you playing here? Did you forge this to get attention at my wedding?" The accusation sparked murmurs from the surrounding guests. Several people stepped closer, clearly fascinated by the developing family drama. "These documents are authentic." Patricia Wellington interjected with the authority of her legal background. "I've examined them thoroughly. Your brother has been working as a senior software developer, earning a 6-figure salary for nearly a year." Amanda's composure cracked visibly. "That's a lie. Corey works part-time at a gaming store. He barely makes enough money to pay for his own food. Daddy has to support him because he can't take care of himself." "Amanda," I said quietly, "when was the last time you actually talked to me about my life instead of talking about me to other people? I don't need to waste time talking to you about your failures." Amanda snapped, her wedding day facade crumbling rapidly. "Everyone already knows the truth about your situation." Harold Wellington stepped forward with growing concern. "Amanda, you specifically told us that your brother had dropped out of college multiple times and was unable to maintain steady employment. You said he was financially dependent on your father and had never shown any ambition or drive. Amanda's face flushed red as she realized her carefully constructed narrative was falling apart in front of her new in-laws. I was protecting the family reputation. Corey's always been an embarrassment, and I didn't want David's family to worry about what kind of relatives they were gaining. So you lied to us? Patricia said with the cold precision of a judge delivering a verdict. You deliberately misrepresented your brother's circumstances to manipulate our perception of your family. It wasn't lying. Amanda's voice was rising dangerously. It was. It was managing the situation. Corey has always been weird and antisocial. Even if he has some job now, that doesn't change the fact that he's not the kind of person you want representing your family. The desperation in Amanda's voice was attracting even more attention. Guests from across the reception hall were abandoning their conversations to watch the bride's increasingly erratic behavior. Amanda, calm down, Robert pleaded, clearly mortified by his daughter's public meltdown. This should be a celebration, not a daunt tell me to calm down. Amanda shrieked, her carefully arranged hair beginning to come loose from its elegant updo. This is supposed to be my day, my perfect day, and Corey is ruining it just like he ruins everything else. In her rage, Amanda began revealing information she had clearly intended to keep secret. You want to know the truth? Fine. I've been borrowing money from Daddy's account to pay for wedding expenses because my job wasn't covering everything. I signed his name on withdrawal slips because I knew he'd want me to have the perfect wedding. Robert's face went white. Amanda, what are you saying? You forged my signature. It wasn't forgery, Amanda protested, though her legal definition was clearly questionable. It was using family resources for family purposes. You would have agreed if I had asked. Harold and Patricia Wellington exchanged alarmed glances. David, Amanda's new husband, appeared beside his parents, looking confused and increasingly concerned about his wife's behavior. There's more, isn't there? Patricia asked with the instinct of someone trained to recognize when a witness was holding back important information. Amanda seemed to realize she had already said too much, but her emotional state was spiraling beyond her control. Fine. You want all the truth? I lost my marketing job 3 months ago because I couldn't handle the workload. I've been pretending to go to work while secretly applying for unemployment benefits. Are you happy now? The revelation hit Robert like a physical blow. You've been unemployed for 3 months? Amanda, why didn't you tell me? Because I knew you'd lecture me about responsibility and compare me to perfect Corey. Amanda screamed, tears streaming down her face and ruining her professional makeup. Because I knew you'd find some way to make it my fault instead of supporting me. Harold Wellington's expression had shifted from concern to horror. David, did you know about any of this? David looked like someone who had just discovered that the person he married was a complete stranger. No, Amanda told me she was being promoted to senior coordinator. She said her salary was increasing to $55,000 annually. That was going to happen, Amanda insisted. I was going to get promoted. I just needed more time to prove myself. Patricia's judicial instincts were fully engaged now. What about your college degree? You told us you graduated from the State University's business program. Amanda's silence stretched for several agonizing seconds before she whispered. I dropped out after failing intermediate accounting twice. But I was going to go back and finish. I was going to make it all true eventually. The fellowship hall had become eerily quiet as nearly every guest turned their attention to the bride's public confession of unemployment, financial fraud, and educational lies. The elegant reception that Amanda had planned so meticulously was transforming into a public exposure of the gap between her projected image and reality. Let me understand this correctly, Harold said with the measured tone of someone trying to process shocking information. You've been unemployed for months. You've been stealing money from your father. You never graduated from college, and you've been lying to everyone about your circumstances, while simultaneously spreading false information about your brother's success. Amanda looked around desperately, seeking support from someone, anyone, who might defend her. But the guests who had spent the evening congratulating her on her achievements were now staring at her with expressions ranging from pity to disgust. It's not stealing, she insisted weakly. Daddy's money is family money, and I didn't lie about Corey. He really is weird and antisocial. Having a job doesn't change that. David stepped closer to his new wife with growing alarm. Amanda, we talked about building our future together based on honesty and mutual support. How am I supposed to trust anything you've told me? You can trust me, Amanda pleaded, reaching for David's hands only to have him step away. The lies were just about protecting what we have. I love you, and that's the only truth that matters. But David was looking at Amanda as if seeing her clearly for the first time. The person I fell in love with was successful, honest, and came from a stable family. Everything you've told me about yourself and your family has been a lie. As Amanda's world crumbled around her, I stood quietly, watching the revelation of truths that had been hidden beneath years of carefully maintained facades. The envelope that had started this cascade of honesty was still in Robert's hands, along with the cashier's check that represented my gesture of independence and respect. The contrast between Amanda's lies and my genuine achievements was creating exactly the kind of family reckoning I had hoped for. But seeing my sister's complete emotional collapse was more painful than satisfying. I had wanted justice, not destruction, but Amanda wasn't finished yet. In her desperation, she was about to make one final attempt to salvage her position by attacking the only target she had left. Me. Amanda's desperation reached a breaking point as she realized that every carefully constructed lie she had built her life around was crumbling in front of an audience of family, friends, and her new husband's distinguished relatives. Her wedding dress, once a symbol of her perfect day, now seemed to mock her as she stood in the center of a circle of people who were seeing her true character for the first time. "This is all Corey's fault," she screamed, pointing at me with shaking hands. "He planned this. He deliberately waited until my wedding day to humiliate me. Has always been jealous of my success, and now he's trying to destroy my happiness." The accusation echoed through the fellowship hall, causing several guests to murmur among themselves. Some looked confused by Amanda's logic, while others seemed uncomfortable with the family drama unfolding before them. "Amanda, that's enough," Robert said firmly, his voice carrying a tone of authority that I had rarely heard him use with his golden child. "Corey didn't force you to lie to David's family. He didn't make you forge my signature or steal from our accounts. I wasn't stealing." Amanda shrieked again, her voice breaking with desperation. "I was investing in our family's reputation. This wedding was supposed to show everyone how successful we are. How successful I am." David stepped forward, his face pale with the realization that his new marriage was built on deception. "Amanda, we need to talk privately. This isn't the time or place for no." Amanda cut him off, whirling around to face the crowd of guests who were watching her unravel. "I want everyone to hear this. I want everyone to understand that Corey has been planning this humiliation for months, has been waiting for the perfect opportunity to make me look bad." She turned back to me with eyes blazing with fury and desperation. "You think you're so smart with your secret job and your fake diploma, but everyone here knows the truth about who you really are. You're still the weird, antisocial brother who can't function in normal society." The attack was exactly what I had expected, but it still stung. Years of similar accusations had trained me to remain calm in the face of Amanda's emotional manipulation. But having it happen in front of 150 wedding guests added a layer of humiliation I hadn't fully anticipated. "Amanda," I said quietly, "my success doesn't diminish yours. I wasn't trying to hurt you by achieving my goals. Your goals." Amanda laughed hysterically. "You don't have goals. You just stumbled into some computer job because you're too scared to try anything that requires real social skills or leadership ability." Harold Wellington stepped forward, his expression grave. "Young lady, I think you're out of line. Your brother has shown remarkable character and professional achievement. You should be proud of his success, not attacking it." "Don't lecture me about my own brother," Amanda snapped at Harold with shocking disrespect. "You don't know anything about our family. You don't know what it's like to grow up with someone who makes you feel guilty for being normal and successful." Patricia Wellington's expression hardened. "Amanda, you need to stop talking immediately. You're making this situation infinitely worse. But Amanda was beyond rational thought. Her perfect day had become a nightmare, and she was lashing out at everyone within reach. Corey has never contributed anything to this family. Daddy has wasted years and thousands of dollars trying to help him become a functional adult. And now he shows up with fake documents, pretending to be successful just to ruin my wedding. The documents aren't fake, Amanda, Robert said with growing firmness. Patricia examined them. They're completely authentic. Corey has been supporting himself and building a career while you've been lying to everyone about your circumstances. I don't care if they're real, Amanda screamed. It doesn't matter. Corey is still weird, has still antisocial. He'll never be able to maintain real relationships or build a real life. Having a job doesn't change the fact that he's fundamentally broken. The cruelty in her voice was breathtaking. Several guests gasped audibly at the viciousness of her attack on her own brother. Even people who didn't know our family well could recognize that Amanda had crossed every line of basic human decency. I took a deep breath and made a decision that would change our family dynamic forever. You're right about one thing, Amanda, I said, my voice carrying clearly through the suddenly quiet reception hall. I am different from you. I prefer to build my success on truth rather than lies. I choose to lift people up rather than tear them down. And I've learned that real achievement doesn't require diminishing others to make myself feel bigger. I paused, looking around at the crowd of guests who were hanging on every word of this unexpected family drama. I've been working for 8 months as a senior software developer, earning more than both our parents combined. I've saved enough money to buy a house. In fact, I closed on a 4-bedroom colonial in Oak Park last month. I paid cash, $350,000. The revelation sent another shockwave through the audience. Even in the aftermath of everything else they had heard, the idea of someone my age purchasing a house outright was impressive to everyone present. I had originally planned to surprise our parents by offering to pay off their mortgage and help them move to a better neighborhood, I continued. I wanted to show my appreciation for their investment in my education by improving their financial security. Robert's face showed a mixture of shock, pride, and regret as he processed this information. But I also wanted to prove that I could succeed independently, without family connections or favoritism. I wanted my achievements to speak for themselves before I revealed them. And honestly, after years of watching mediocrity get celebrated while excellence went unnoticed, I wanted to choose the right moment to demonstrate the difference between real success and imagined success. I looked directly at Amanda, who was staring at me with undisguised hatred. The truth is, Amanda, your opinion of my social skills doesn't actually matter to my career, my financial security, or my happiness. I've built a life based on competence, integrity, and genuine achievement. I don't need family approval to validate my worth. David Wellington, who had been watching this exchange with growing horror, finally spoke up. Amanda, I need some time to process everything that's happened here today. I think we should postpone our honeymoon until we can have some serious conversations about our relationship. Postpone our honeymoon. Amanda's voice reached a pitch that threatened to shatter the crystal centerpieces. David, you can't be serious. This is just family drama. It doesn't have anything to do with us. It has everything to do with us. David replied with the firm tone of someone who had reached a life-changing decision. I married someone who I thought was honest, successful, and came from a stable family. Instead, you've discovered that you've lied about your education, your employment, your finances, and your family relationships. I need time to understand who I actually married. Amanda looked around desperately, seeking support from someone, anyone, who might take her side. But the guests who had spent the evening celebrating her perfect wedding were now avoiding eye contact, clearly uncomfortable with the scene they had witnessed. Daddy, she pleaded, turning to Robert with tears streaming down her face. Tell them they're wrong. Tell them I'm still your successful daughter. Robert looked at Amanda with an expression of profound sadness. Sweetheart, success built on lies isn't really success at all. Corey has shown me what genuine achievement looks like, and it doesn't require putting other people down or misrepresenting the truth. As the reality of her situation sank in, Amanda made one final, desperate attack. Fine. You all want to worship Corey for his stupid computer job? Go ahead, but hell never have what I have. Hell never be normal. Hell never have real relationships or a real family. Hell always be the weird brother who had to buy his success because he could never earn it through being a decent human being. The attack was so cruel and unfounded that several guests audibly gasped, but instead of hurting me, Amanda's words had the opposite effect. They revealed her character so completely that no one could doubt who was truly in the wrong. I looked at my sister with something approaching pity. Amanda, I hope you find a way to build real happiness in your life, but I'm done allowing your insecurity and dishonesty to affect my sense of self-worth. I wish you well, but I won't be participating in any more family dynamics that require me to diminish my achievements so you can feel better about yours. With that, I turned to Robert and handed him a business card. Dad, my contact information is on there. When you're ready to have an honest conversation about our family, call me. I'll be in my new house, working at my successful career, building the kind of life that makes me proud. As I walked away from the reception, leaving behind the chaos Amanda had created, I felt a sense of freedom I had never experienced before. The truth was finally out. The family secrets had been exposed, and I had proven that real success doesn't need lies or family favoritism to sustain it. Behind me, I could hear Amanda's continued protests, and David's increasingly firm statements about needing time apart. But for the first time in years, her drama was no longer my responsibility to manage or endure. 3 months after Amanda's wedding disaster, I was sitting in my home office, surrounded by the tools and technology that had built my independent success. The morning sunlight streamed through the large windows of my Oak Park house, illuminating the workspace where I designed cybersecurity systems that protected millions of dollars in financial transactions. My latest project involved developing anti-fraud algorithms that would be implemented by major banks across the Midwest, work that challenged me intellectually and provided the kind of professional satisfaction I had always dreamed of achieving. The aftermath of the wedding had been both painful and liberating. Amanda's marriage to David Wellington had lasted exactly 14 days before he filed for annulment, citing fraud and misrepresentation as grounds for dissolving their union. The legal proceedings had been swift but thorough, with Patricia Wellington's judicial connections ensuring that David's interests were protected from any future financial claims Amanda might make. Amanda herself had initially disappeared for several weeks, refusing to answer phone calls or respond to family attempts at reconciliation. When she finally resurfaced, she was living in a studio apartment across town, working as a part-time administrative assistant for a dental office and attempting to rebuild her life on more honest foundations. The real transformation had been in my relationship with Robert. 2 weeks after the wedding, he had appeared at my front door with a mixture of nervousness and determination, clearly uncomfortable but committed to having the conversation we both knew was overdue. "Corey," he had said, standing awkwardly on my front porch like a stranger, "I owe you an apology that's about 20 years late." I invited him inside, and we spent the next 4 hours talking more honestly than we had ever talked in our entire relationship. Robert acknowledged that his favoritism toward Amanda had been unfair and damaging, rooted in his own insecurities about success and his tendency to value superficial achievements over genuine substance. "I thought success looked like confidence and social ease," he admitted, sitting in my living room and examining the evidence of my independent life. The quality furniture, the technology, the framed diploma, the professional awards I had earned. "I mistook Amanda's entitlement for ambition and your thoughtfulness for weakness. I was completely wrong about both of my children." The conversation had been emotionally difficult but necessary. Robert moved into my guest house a month later, after I made good on my original promise to pay off his mortgage and help him transition to a more financially secure retirement. Living on the same property had given us opportunities for daily interactions that slowly rebuilt the father-son relationship we had never really had. Robert had also begun attending therapy sessions to address his parenting patterns and understand how his need to live vicariously through his children's achievements had damaged both Amanda and me in different ways. His therapist had helped him recognize that authentic success comes from supporting each child's individual strengths rather than comparing them to arbitrary standards or each other. The most surprising development had been Amanda's eventual return to the family circle, though our relationship remained cautious and limited. After months of struggling alone, she had reached out for help when she faced potential homelessness due to her inability to afford rent on her assistant's salary. I had wrestled with the decision before agreeing to help her, but ultimately chose to demonstrate the kind of character I wanted to embody. I helped Amanda find a legitimate full-time position as a receptionist at a medical practice, work that matched her actual skills and provided stable income. I also assisted her in enrolling in online business courses to complete the college degree she had lied about having. Our interactions were cordial but distant. Amanda seemed genuinely remorseful about her behavior at the wedding, but rebuilding trust would require years of consistent honesty that she was only beginning to demonstrate. She had apologized for the lies she told about my circumstances, though I suspected her regret was motivated more by the consequences she faced than by genuine remorse about the harm she had caused. The professional recognition I had received in the months following the wedding had exceeded my expectations. My work on cybersecurity protocols had attracted attention throughout the industry, leading to speaking opportunities at technology conferences and offers from larger companies seeking to recruit my expertise. TechFlow Solutions had responded to outside interest by promoting me to lead developer and increasing my salary to $160,000 annually, plus expanded stock options that reflected the company's growing value. I had also been invited to join the board of advisors for a startup focused on financial security software, a position that provided additional income and professional networking opportunities. But the most meaningful development had been my decision to establish the Adams Educational Excellence Scholarship, a fund designed to support first-generation college students who lacked family financial support. The scholarship provided not just money but also mentorship and professional guidance for young people whose achievements went unrecognized in their family systems. Every weekend, I volunteered at a community center in downtown Chicago, teaching coding and computer skills to teenagers from underprivileged backgrounds. Many of these young people reminded me of myself at their age: intelligent, ambitious, but lacking family support or recognition for their potential. "Mr. Adams," said Marcus, a 17-year-old whose programming skills had impressed everyone in the class, "how did you know you were good enough to work for a real tech company?" The question had struck me as profoundly sad and familiar. "Marcus, talent doesn't need permission to exist. You don't have to wait for someone else to recognize your abilities before you start believing in them yourself." These teaching sessions had become the most rewarding part of my week, providing perspective on how my own struggles with family recognition had prepared me to help other young people navigate similar challenges. Robert had begun volunteering as the program coordinator, using his background in education to help organize activities and connect with parents. Working together on something meaningful had given us a shared purpose that strengthened our rebuilt relationship in ways that family dinners alone could never have achieved. The scholarship fund had grown to support 12 students in its first year, with plans to expand as funding increased. Several scholarship recipients had already been accepted to prestigious universities, and seeing their success felt more satisfying than any professional achievement I had earned for myself. One particularly memorable moment had come 6 months after the wedding, when I received a handwritten letter from Sarah Chen, one of my scholarship recipients who had just completed her freshman year at Northwestern University with a perfect grade point average. "Mr. Adams," she wrote, "I wanted you to know that your belief in my potential changed my life. My family didn't understand why I wanted to study computer science instead of following a more traditional path, but your scholarship gave me the freedom to pursue my dreams. I'm now working on research that could help protect online banking systems from cyber attacks. Thank you for showing me that individual excellence doesn't require family approval." Reading Sarah's letter had brought tears to my eyes as I recognized my own journey reflected in her experience. The cycle of overlooked potential and delayed recognition was being broken, one scholarship at a time. The most profound lesson I had learned from the entire experience was that authentic success requires no external validation, but becomes meaningful only when it's used to lift others up rather than tear others down. My achievements had value not because they proved I was better than Amanda, but because they enabled me to create opportunities for other people who needed support and encouragement. The family dynamics that had caused me so much pain had ultimately become the foundation for understanding how to help other young people navigate similar challenges. My experience with being overlooked had taught me to recognize potential in places where others might not think to look. Amanda's lies and cruelty had revealed the difference between surface-level success and genuine achievement, showing me that real accomplishment comes from competence, integrity, and persistence, rather than from family favoritism or social manipulation. Robert's journey from favoritism to fairness had demonstrated that people can change when they're willing to confront their mistakes honestly and work to make amends. His commitment to therapy and volunteer work showed that genuine regret leads to behavioral change, not just words. Even David Wellington's decision to annul his marriage had shown the importance of building relationships on truth rather than comfortable illusions. His willingness to walk away from a beautiful wedding and social expectations in favor of authentic partnership had been painful but ultimately wise. As I sat in my home office that morning, reviewing code that would protect financial institutions across the country, I reflected on how far our family had traveled from that devastating wedding day. The truth that had seemed so destructive in the moment had ultimately freed all of us to build more honest and sustainable relationships. The envelope I had carried to the wedding had contained more than just documents. It had contained the power to reshape our family's understanding of success, achievement, and the difference between perception and reality. My phone rang, interrupting my reflection. The caller ID showed Linda Rodriguez, TechFlow's CEO. "Corey," she said when I answered, "I have some exciting news. The banking consortium has approved our cybersecurity proposal, and they want you to lead the implementation team. The contract is worth $12 million over 3 years, and they specifically requested you because of your reputation in the industry." As I accepted the leadership position that would define the next phase of my career, I thought about the journey that had brought me to this moment. The pain of family rejection had taught me to value genuine achievement over superficial recognition. The years of having my accomplishments overlooked had prepared me to notice and nurture potential in other people. That afternoon, I would call Marcus and the other students in my coding program to share the news that additional scholarship funding had been secured. Tonight, I would have dinner with Robert in the guest house, continuing our ongoing conversation about how to build family relationships based on truth and mutual respect. And, somewhere across town, Amanda would be finishing her shift at the medical office, working honestly for the first time in years, and slowly learning that real success requires genuine effort rather than clever manipulation. The wedding that was supposed to celebrate Amanda's perfect life had instead revealed the truth about all of us. And in the end, that truth had set us free to build something better. Have you ever had to choose between maintaining family peace and standing up for your own worth? Sometimes the people closest to us have the hardest time seeing our true potential. But that doesn't mean we have to accept their limited vision of who we can become. I'd love to hear about your own experiences with family dynamics and personal achievement in the comments below. If this story resonated with you, please give it a like to help others find it. Don't forget to subscribe for more stories about overcoming family challenges and building authentic success. And please share this with anyone who might need encouragement to pursue their goals despite family doubts or obstacles. Thank you for listening to my story. And remember, your worth isn't determined by other people's recognition, but you'll know you've truly succeeded when you can use your achievements to help others reach their potential too. Keep believing in yourself, even when others don't, because the truth about your capabilities will eventually speak louder than anyone else's doubts.